For many veterans, the transition from the military to the civilian world is one of the most difficult times in their lives. Tonight, we'll be talking with veterans who are starting their transition and others who have become experts. Stay with us as we discuss transition, what I wish I knew. Welcome to Veterans Voices. I'm Alyssa Kim. Tonight, we'll be talking with veterans and experts about transitioning from the military to civilian life. If you're watching live, we want you to be a part of our conversation. Give us a call at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you. My co-host tonight is the Veteran Service Officer for Contra Costa County, Joshua Zebley. He's someone who knows quite a lot about transition. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Elena. I certainly hope I know a lot about transition because I've been in this atmosphere for almost 7 years now, so this topic is extremely important to me.
Excellent. Well, we're very glad to have you. Our first guests tonight are both veterans who have recently left the military. I want to welcome Marine veteran Andres Garcia and Navy veteran Jessica Engel to the show. Welcome. Jessica, can you start us off and tell us a little bit about your military career?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I was in the Navy for 5 years as an air traffic controller. I got to deploy to Japan, and then on those deployments, I got to go down to Australia and Guam too, and I was stationed in San Diego.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Andres, can you tell us a little bit about your military career?
So I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years. My job was infantry rifleman, and I was based in 29 Palms. I went to Japan as my deployment.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for being here.
Thank you both very, very much for being here. It sounds like you both went to some really fun places, 29 Palms sometimes, right? I've been there a couple times. Can you tell me a little bit, Jessica, about your transition?
Yeah, so I got out this past February. I was able to do all of my disability stuff while I was still in the service, which was very beneficial. And I started at Diablo Valley College just this last month.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome. Was that February of this year or?
It was February of this year.
Oh, wow. So less than a year out.
Yes, less than a year out.
What about Andres? You're also less than a year out, right?
I'm a little bit sooner. I was in July 9th of this year.
July 9th. Oh my gosh. So
Just 3 months today.
3 months, yeah.
Oh, look at that math. That's great. We're happy.
So far, Andres, what has been the most surprising thing to you about this experience of transitioning into civilian life?
That there's like actual places that can help you transition.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Awesome. What about you? Anything super surprising in your first year?
The same thing, that there's a lot of support. You just have to find it. You have to know who to talk to.
Very cool. Very cool.
So what have you guys found, though you talk about support, what's kind of the main, like, this is where you need to go when you get out, or where you all went when you got out, that support network?
I got a lot of support from Diablo Valley College, from the Veterans Club. That's where I've gotten most of my support. Before that, I was disconnected from the military after getting out. So going back to school, being with all the veterans who have been through the same process has been really helpful.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, I remember when I first got out, for me, the most important thing was starting college first. I didn't really know why, but it wasn't until I got onto the college campus and got connected with my Veterans Resource Center, or I know some colleges also have like a student veterans club where you really start to talk with other veterans. And I don't know, for me, tell me if you had the same experience. It was kind of jarring to start class and you feel a little bit older and you're surrounded by younger students, but connecting with the Veterans Club was what really kind of brought me out of my shell. What about you, Jessica? What brought you out of your shell on campus?
The same exact thing, going to the Veterans Club. I'd say I'm a shy person, so being connected to fellow veterans is a safe place for me.
Yeah, awesome.
I think the veterans definitely need to know, student veterans need to know how important it is to go into a VRC, a Veteran Resource Center. Almost every community college in the state has them. So I think it's where you can find like-minded people and people that are going through exactly the same thing. Andres, you're an officer at DVC in the club?
So I'm an officer in the Students Veterans Alliance Club, and that's pretty much a club that gathers veterans and dependents and also other students that want to learn more about veterans and that lifestyle. And we just get together and have kind of like a separate group away from the normal college kids because we understand each other a little bit differently than the other students.
Yeah, that's really important.
It definitely makes sense.
I wanted to ask, so if you could think back to when you were first getting out of the military, did you know you wanted to go to college, or was it a decision that you made after you were already out?
So my plan was to get my real estate license and work with my dad. Unfortunately, that didn't really pan out, so I said the next best thing is to go to college and to see if I can get some higher education.
Nice. And did you have any trouble, you're both using the GI Bill, right?
Yes.
Did you have any trouble learning about how to use that benefit? And if so, was there a certain person or organization that you reached out to for help?
So when I applied to college, I was really scared and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So when I went to the college and I asked, can you help me? They said, oh, I'm the veteran service officer. I'm gonna walk you through this.
Nice.
And he gave me a list of what you need, what papers they need, and they pretty much said, just give me this and I'll do it for you.
So you showed up on campus and you happened to meet that person who worked at the Veterans Resource Center. That's so cool. What was your experience like? Were you also kind of worried about getting into college?
I had the same experience as Andre. I called, made an appointment for the normal counselor for school, and then during that appointment, they were like, oh, you're a veteran. Let me connect you with the veteran service people. And through that, I was able to get connected, and they were able to help out a lot.
That's really cool.
So you're so young in this transition process, right? And tonight you're going to see guests that are a little further beyond in that transition process. I want you guys to think about questions that you may have for Elena and I, and also the guest. If you have any right now, what are you kind of thinking about? I'm in school now. What's the next step for me? Have you visited your county veteran service office? I mean, have you connected with the certain benefits that may be eligible for? As far as, I think, Jessica, you stated that you filed those claims prior to exiting the military?
I did, yes. Yeah.
And that gave you a leg up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you have time to think about filing for disability compensation with your busy school schedule? Like, is that even on your mind right now?
I'm lucky that I did mine before, because if I was doing it now, I think I would be very stressed out.
A little overwhelmed.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, I'm a little bit stressed out about that. But I think that the VSO here in Martinez really helps me out to really walk me through the steps.
Nice.
And if I have any questions, I know that I can just call them and they know the answer, or they can give me the answer.
Nice. So we talked about using your GI Bill and applying for disability compensation, which you're on your way to, Andres. But are you also doing the VA work study program? And can you tell us a little bit about that program and how you sort of heard about it, got started with it?
So the way I heard about the work study program was through the orientation that the Student Veterans Resource Center had prior to this fall semester.
Nice.
And when they said, oh, we need your help to help other veterans and, you know, the dependents and spouses, I said, well, I don't want to just sit at home and do nothing. I want to like actually try to help my fellow brothers and sisters.
Nice, very cool. Yeah, that VA work study program allows you to work at your Veterans Resource Center and help other student veterans. And meanwhile, you're also getting a tax-free stipend to add to your monthly GI Bill benefits. Is that right?
That's right.
Awesome. Would you encourage other people to do that as well?
I'm trying to get Jessica to sign up here at work study.
Did you know about the program coming in, or did you just hear about it from Andres?
I did not. We went to the same orientation, so during that orientation is when I found out all of that information.
Cool. Very cool.
Andre, you made a great point. You want to help other veterans, and that's obviously the point of this entire show. I don't know if you have one piece of advice. I think it sounds like go to your VRC, contact your CVSO, and then talk to other fellow veterans, because now I know when we're in, it's kind of like a little, you're in the Navy, you're in the Marines, you're in the Air Force, you're in the Army, but now we are all like kind of funneled into veterans, and it breaks down that, it's friendly rivalry, right? Especially Marines and Navy, of course, we always have the jokes. But now we're all veterans and we want to help as many as we can. So I think your point was great. At your young age in transition, you're already thinking about how am I going to help the veterans that are exiting after me, which has only been 3 months. So you're way ahead of a lot of us. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So you've been using the GI Bill, both of you, for still kind of a short time. What's one thing that you kind of learned about the GI Bill that you would definitely want to impart to other folks who are going to be using it? Maybe something that you didn't know before you started using it that you learned along the way.
So there's different kinds of payments, and if you ask someone who actually knows, like our VSO at the Student Veterans Resource Center, he'll tell you that, oh, you're going to get a $500 stipend first, then you're going to get your first paycheck, and then the next paycheck is going to come the first or the 30th of the month.
So planning for that, your money management, very important. Awesome. Real quick, in 10 seconds, anything that surprised you about the GI Bill or that you'd want others to know?
I wish I knew about the VR&E, and I know our next guests are gonna talk about that.
Absolutely. We'll talk to our next guest about that. Well, thank you both for joining us. When we return, we will talk with some veterans who are a little further on their path of transition, as well as some experts. But before that, we want to hear some thoughts from Napa County Veteran Service Officer Del Pratt in a new segment that we're calling A Word with Your VSO.
Hi, I'm Del Pratt, Veteran Services Officer for Napa County. I'd like to take a couple of minutes to talk about transition, specifically when active duty members and their families transition from the active duty side to quote unquote the real veteran side. The importance of the VSO in that process is there's a lot of localized benefits, localized preferences that the VSO is going to be aware of. Some of those include specifically for here in California, the California tuition fee waiver. Oftentimes we'll have veterans come to my office and they've literally just wrote their last check for their children's college education, not knowing that California offers a tuition fee waiver for any service-connected veteran. In addition to those state benefits and federal benefits, most veterans, when they transition, they're thinking about their service-connected disability claim, and VSOs can definitely handle that. But there's also a sense of community, a sense of belonging that many veterans long for, and the local VSO is going to be the focal point for getting those veterans connected to not only all their earned benefits from the federal and state level, but those local preferences, that sense of community, that sense of belonging. Again, I'm Del from Napa County. Please contact your VSO for more information. Take care.
We're talking about transitioning from the military to civilian life. If you're watching us live, we invite you to be part of the conversation. Call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veteran Voices 1 or email us at veteranvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you. Now we want to add Air Force veteran Alyssa Albright of the California Transition Assistance Program, Air Force veteran Jason Bailey of Work for Warriors, and veterans Raymond Villasenor and Brian Redquist to our conversation. Welcome.
Good evening. Thanks for having me, Josh and Atlanta.
Brian, can you tell us a little bit about your military career?
Sure. So I just recently retired just over a year ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Completed 26 years, 26 days. I thought that was pretty cool. But during that, I was a retired Senior Master Sergeant, E8. In my job, I did lots of different things throughout my career. I was an Air Force Honor Guard, ceremonial guardsman, out down in Washington, D.C., where we would perform ceremonial funeral honors out there in Arlington. I also was an air advisor. Then where I did my career field was aircrew flight equipment, so that was all survival related, parachutes, survival kits. But I would go down to South America and train partner nation air forces on how we do our job for the United States. I also was a command manager out at Barksdale Air Force Base for Global Strike, where I would go out and perform inspections on the units out there and making sure that they were ready to go and perform their mission should we be asked to do that. And then finally, I retired out of Beale Air Force Base, where I was a squadron superintendent for the U-2 squadron.
Nice. Sounds like you have some experience mentoring young airmen as well, so we'll talk about that in a second.
Thank you so much for joining us, Brian, and thank you for your service as well. And how you remembered everything you did in 26 years and 26 days is amazing. Maybe we can get Alyssa or Jason, tell us a little about their military service.
Hey there, Alyssa Albright. Thanks for having me. Really happy to be here. I'm currently the Transition Assistance Training Manager over with the California Department of Veterans Affairs. Prior to this, I was with the 349th Air Mobility Wing at Travis Air Force Base, and I served as a Force Support Officer and an Equal Opportunity Director from 2014 to 2021.
Thanks for being with us, Alyssa. Jason, what about you? Tell us a little bit about your military career.
Absolutely. First off, thanks for having me tonight. Glad to be here. Started my military career on September 11, 2007, actually, where I enlisted in the United States Air Force. I did a term as a security forces military police officer at Keesler Air Force Base. Saluting officers, letting people on post. I did a single term with them, and then took a small break in service and realized I got to get back in. Civilian world is not for me after that first transition. So I switched over to the Army National Guard. I've been there for about a little over 10 years now, and through the National Guard, I found work for Warriors, and for the past 5 years, I've been the Southern California liaison, helping veterans and their family members find gainful employment opportunities and trying to just, decrease that unemployment rate for veterans and their families. And I love what I do. I haven't worked a day in my life for the past 5 years being able to help the veteran community.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like you know a lot about transition, and we'll talk a little bit more about Warriors for Work. Raymond, can you tell us a little bit about your military career?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for bringing me back. Happy to be here. So I was in the U.S. Army for 3 years, served out in Fort Campbell, Kentucky with the 101st Airborne. After transitioning out, didn't know what to do, so started going to college. And today I'm getting my master's in counseling in San Francisco and interning at UC Davis.
Wow, that's awesome. You've been out for 5 years now, is that right, Raymond?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're using the GI Bill or which program to get your degree?
I started off with the GI Bill at community college, but I switched over to VRNE, and I've been using that at the university level and also with my master's.
Excellent. Well, we got a lot to dive into.
Raymond, it sounds like you're definitely on the right track, and I think a lot of the audience is going to be able to learn from you, as well as Alyssa and Jason, and it's nice to see you both. We've worked together for many years now as part of the Transition Assistance Program. Maybe, Alyssa, you could tell us about kind of the mission of CalTAP. You mentioned it a little bit. Maybe you could dig a little deeper there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Transition Assistance Program through the Department of Veterans Affairs is the state side of that federal TGPS, that mandatory 40 hours that all service members had to sit through before exiting the service or separating. So we are the state side of things, and our mission at CalTAP is to connect service members, veterans, and their families to their earned state and federal benefits. And the way that we do that is through the different pathways that we have. We have a core curriculum, which is kind of like our California state benefits. We have educational resources to talk about, employment resources, entrepreneurship resources, and then we have a service providers cultural competency that we talk to folks who are unfamiliar with working with veterans and would like to get familiar.
I'm so glad we have you on the show, Alyssa, because a lot of folks, they get out, and the first thing that I try to tell veterans is there's a difference between the federal VA, the Department of Veterans, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and then in California, we have this unique Department of Veterans Affairs for the state, so that's where you're joining us from. And then, of course, we've got all these wonderful nonprofits that work to help veterans as well. Jason, can you tell us a little bit about that work, and what is the mission of Work for Warriors?
Absolutely. So at Work for Warriors, our primary mission is to reduce the unemployment and the underemployment rate with veterans and their family members. As we all know, at COVID threw everyone through a loop. So a lot of people lost their jobs, and we're striving to help get those people back in the workforce. And I said the underemployment ratio as well. As we know, we live in California. It's expensive. Some people are making $17, $18, $20 an hour, and it's not cutting the bills. So what we do is we try and find careers, sustainable and gainful employment that's going to make life-changing things happen for these veterans, because anyone can go get a job, and whether it's doing security or working at Walmart or whatever it may be, Home Depot. Not to say that those jobs aren't good jobs, but for those who live in California, you got to make a little bit more of the coin. So we try and find programs and job opportunities that are going to change these people's lives and be able to have them sustain themselves and their families after getting out of the military, and helping them find that purpose, motivation, and direction.
That is so important.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, Jason, Brian. So I think we have a really unique panel here tonight. Brian, retiring, 26 years, 26 days. We all remember that now. Jason, active duty and now working for Work for Warriors. Alyssa, reservist and working for the state of California. So I think we're able to capture, and at what stage of your life do you really need to make sure you're focused? What stage of your military career do you need to make sure you're focusing on transition? So do you think, Brian, is it too early at some point? Obviously there can be a too late, but tell me the advantages of planning early.
Yeah, sure. So like coming out, I joined the Air Force right out of high school, because that was just, as a family, that's what we did. I come from a military family. So joining the Air Force was what I was going to do. I didn't care what job I was going to do. I was just going to join the Air Force. So I also, throughout the years, there was critical moments in my career where I had the ambition to always go as far as I can go. But then I also knew that I wasn't afraid to walk out the door if I needed to at different points, right? So trying to set myself up, trying to get my education. I didn't start that off right away in the very beginning. But towards the end of my career, I left the active duty with a master's in organizational leadership. I have a bachelor's in the same, and then some CCAFs, or Community College of the Air Forces as well, along with some program manager certifications. So you can never start too early. I think some of the benefits, where they'll be readily available for the folks right away, if they take advantage of those while they're existing.
Yeah, that's great, Brian. And you told us a lot of really good things you did, but if there's something you feel like, I wish I would have done this, the title of the show, What I Wish I Knew, it sounds like you did everything great. You got your bachelor's, you got your master's, you planned, but if one thing you could say, I missed the ball on this, what do you think that would be?
I would have just went to school a little sooner.
Went to school sooner?
I sure would.
Okay.
Because I found it was a little harder just to get back in the textbook. When you're saying you're 17 years in my service, when I first started going after my bachelor's, transitioning into being a school student again, that was really hard because I had my life going, I had family, I had kids, I had responsibilities for the day job. It was tough to sit down and crack the book open for the few hours every night, to get the work done.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's definitely a different. We heard from our first panel. When you get out a little bit younger, you're using the GI Bill, or like Raymond's using VR&E. But when you've had an entire career, and you're getting out of the military, the last time you were a civilian was when you're in high school, right? It's got to be such a different. Do you have family and kids and everything already by the time you got out?
So my kids now are grown up, and I put 3 of our 4 kids from a blended family. 3 of them are in the Air Force currently right now. So they came out of high school. Some of them did go to college for a couple of years, but eventually right now that's where they're deciding to serve. And then we'll support them as well. We're making sure that they get all the benefits and the information early on, not just because they're family, but because it's and when I was growing up in '96, when I came in the Air Force, there wasn't that huge push on, take advantage of the benefits we give you. Everybody says you have the benefits, but then nobody ever told us how to actually go about doing them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Raymond, I know earlier you talked about VR&E. Can you explain to maybe folks who have heard about the GI Bill but weren't quite sure about VR&E, how do you utilize this program?
Yeah, so this is all from my understanding too. Pretty much VR&E, just like the GI Bill, is an education program that but there are some stipulations. For example, you have to, I think the biggest one is you have to have a service connection disability rating above 10%. Not sure if they changed that. When I applied, it was 10%. So if you're over 10%, you should be eligible to apply. And then when you apply, you will get interviewed by a counselor, and pretty much they decide whether or not they're letting you in the program. A lot of people use this program to pay for their masters as well as their bachelors, like I'm doing. And it's not an education program. It's more like getting you set up for a career program, if that makes sense. And it's smart to be strategic with your GI Bill and VRNE if you do plan to go that route, because your GI Bill will eventually run out, but VRNE does not run out as long as you keep going to school and your education plan fits in line with your career plan. I think that pretty much sums it up.
So I want to help you out because we don't have anybody from the VA from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs on the show. But I know if they were on the show, they would definitely describe VRNE, Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment, as a vocational program first. Although we do hear from a lot of students that they're using it to pay for school, but primarily it's there to ensure that if you have a disability, again, GI Bill, you don't need to have a disability in order to use, but VRNE, you do need to have a disability in order to use. You want to, when you have that conversation with your vocational rehabilitation counselor, really explain to them what's going on with your disability, why is it affecting your current work, and then they'll create a path together with you hand in hand in order to get you into a better vocation, right? If it requires education, then they might pay for schooling. If it requires maybe experience in a trade, then they'll help coordinate that. But everybody's experience with VRNE is a little bit different versus GI Bill. It's pretty similar. You know, everybody's going to get the same amount of time and same amount of payment there.
Yeah. I feel like VRNE can be very confusing and unique to each individual. So we recommend contacting the GI Bill hotline or coming into your CVSO office if you have questions about VRNE.
Absolutely.
You don't know when the right time to use it is unless you speak to somebody, in my opinion. You want to talk to, Rami, you want to tell us a little bit about what do you think the most difficult part of your transition was?
Mine, when I first got out, like for the first 4 months, I didn't know what to do. It was I bought like a motorcycle and I'll just go driving around LA trying to stay busy. And eventually I ended up going to school. I ran out of money and I didn't want to tap into my GI Bill, but I had to pay rent. So probably the most difficult part is like the sense of isolation that comes with getting out and losing all your friends, your support system, and going back, especially if you've been removed for years and you go back, it's like, it's just you. And then you don't really have that camaraderie and it's just gone. And that's probably the hardest part that I went through and what my friends tell me as well.
Yeah. Jason, you're working with veterans every day who are either, as you said, not employed or underemployed. When they come into the Warriors for Work office, you're giving them what types of services? I mean, would it include something like mentorship for someone who just got out and is feeling that disconnect as well?
Absolutely. So when people come to the Work for Warriors office, we offer, a variety of services. So at the core of it, it is helping find career opportunities and training opportunities. The numbers show about 80% of the military, when they get out, they don't want to do what they did in the military. So what we like to do is try and find programs and certification programs to help them make that, adjust fire, to shift fire left or right, depending on what they did in the military and what they want to do when they grow up. So we go out and we find programs to get them project management certifications, to assist with getting, IT certifications, all these different, I call them pathways to help them, kind of funnel into what their next career choice is going to be. And everything we do at Work for Warriors, free of charge. Obviously, some of the programs we can't waive all of the fees, but we try and find every program that we can that comes at zero cost to the veteran. Because just like Raymond said, when you run out of money, you don't want to tap into that GI Bill, but you kind of have to pay rent. So a majority of the programs that we offer at Work for Warriors through our partner organizations are going to come at that free 99 cost. But without that, I mean, other than that, we have our resume writing critique. We're not writing it for you. We're going to show you how to write a proper resume. One of those give a man a fish versus teaching a man to fish. Everything to do with employment relation. And we definitely always refer everyone over to CalTAPS, especially if they're a California veteran. Go talk to CalVet, go talk to CalTAPS, because what I wish I knew when I transitioned, CalTAPS has it all.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Jason, for that plug on CalTAP as well. Alyssa, could you tell us a little bit about the CalVet Home Loan?
Oh yeah, so CalVet Home Loan, this is something that one of the programs that CalVet offers. It's a hidden gem that nobody knows about that they need to know about. So this is something that's manually underwritten, and it can be used in conjunction with that VA home loan. So there's some great individuals that are behind the scenes working this. Feel free to reach out to myself, to anybody out in CalTAP at CalVet, and we'll talk to you about it to see what your individual situation is.
Yeah, it's such a good program. Yeah. I always like to tell veterans who come into the office that the VA home loan is a guarantee, meaning the federal government is going to back you as you take out a loan. But the unique thing, and it really is unique in California, about the CalVet home loans is that the state is actually the lender. They are actually the ones that are loaning you the funds, which is super unique and super helpful. By the way, they're also veterans, so they are, you give them a call and you have a conversation with them, and it doesn't feel like you're talking to someone who doesn't know your background, who doesn't know your story. It's really a peer-to-peer support type thing. Alyssa, can you also talk to us? I know Dell was talking to us a little bit about the CalVet college tuition fee waiver. Can you give us a few pointers on that one?
Yeah, so the CalVet tuition fee waiver, this is something that a lot of people say, I wish I knew, probably one of the top things. And this is dependents of service members, veterans can go to school for free in California. Free school. Of course, there's some caveats behind it, but community college, CSU, UCs, all the way up until their doctorate, dependents are able to go to school for free. So again, another plug for CalVet. Please reach out to us if anybody wants more information on that.
We'll plug your county VSO there too. If you're interested in any of these programs, please reach out to your local county veteran service officer.
So those two programs that Alyssa just talked about are two real reasons for the basis of this show, CalVet Home Loan and CalVet Tuition Fee Waiver, because I think that's what we heard the most. I wish I would have known about. I mean, we're talking about many other things, VR&E, we're talking about Work for Warriors, the difference between federal, state, and local resources. We still get veterans calling us thinking we're the VA, and I'm sure you do too, Elena. So it's so important. Brian and Raymond, you mentioned something about making sure that you have a support network, and I think that is probably the number one thing that I would say is the most important thing, because you're used to having a group of friends all together that are all going through the same thing at the same time, and now you get out 6 months, and then your buddy gets out 6 months later, and you're kind of like, well, what do I do? Well, you should be talking to that person that's exited prior to you about the accomplishments they've made, the mistakes that they've made, and you can stay connected with that. I think it's the best advice that I could give anyone who recently exited or is soon to exit.
Brian, you got out a little bit later. You had your degree in hand. Did you, I'm just curious, ever utilize either save your GI Bill for your dependents, or did you use or know about the college tuition fee waiver in California?
Yeah, sure. So I made an effort to get all the school I could on active duty because I wanted the Air Force to pay for everything for me. And so I didn't have to dip into that, even though I knew GI Bill was for me. When I was able to get out, I was able to transfer my GI Bill benefits down to my children.
So great.
And so what that afforded them to do, I believe it was like 18 months to each of them is what I was able to transfer down. And then so at that time, I was previously married to also another active duty member. So the transferring of their 18 credits as well went down to the children. So essentially 36 months apiece. But however, since my son joined the Air Force, then I was able to do is turn around and still transfer that again to my dependent, Jennifer, that I'm married to now. So she's actually utilizing my GI Bill and continuing her education and going back and getting her master's degree.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Brian. When we return, we will conclude our panel conversation and answer your viewer questions, so stay with us.
Honestly, I'm not really sure why I'm calling. It's just...
I'm having nightmares.
My husband and I, we're just fighting a lot.
I can't get any sleep.
Things just keep getting worse, and it's starting to feel like I can't do this by myself anymore.
We could use some help figuring things out.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you called. Why don't you tell me more about what's going on? There's no wrong reason to reach out for crisis support. Whatever you're going through, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help. Visit veteranscrisisline.net to learn more.
We're talking with veterans about transition to civilian life. If you're watching live, we invite you to be part of our conversation. Give us a call at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you. And I want to welcome back our veterans and our experts. Welcome back, everyone. Let's ask Raymond, what was the moment that you realized that civilian life is going to be very different from military life?
Probably when I got out and I was in LA trying to figure it out. I'll go on social media and see like what my friends from the military were doing, and then I just didn't have a support system. So at that moment, I realized that I had to try to make new friends, which is pretty weird and difficult, you know. But eventually at community college, things happened, made a lot of friends, and that was able to make up for everything.
Yeah, making friends is a lot easier when you're in the military because you're kind of stuck together. You don't have a choice. People can't go anywhere.
Definitely. Definitely. How about Jessica? You know, when was the moment you realized that civilian life was going to be a lot different from the last 4 years of your life?
Before I got out, I was able to do something called Skill Bridge, which is an internship program 6 months before you get out of the service. So basically, I was a civilian 6 months before I got out, and doing that was, like Raymond said, all your friends are gone, and you move, and it's just, you kind of feel like left out.
Yeah, such a great program. Thanks for bringing it up. So Skill Bridge, we've talked about GI Bill, we've talked about VRNE, college tuition fee waiver. Again, if you're confused about any of these, please contact your local county veteran service officer. But Skill Bridge specifically is a Department of Defense program. So this program, if you've already gotten out, chances are it's a little too late, but if you're still in and you're watching this and you're interested, it's a DoD program. So while you're still in uniform, go to your chain of command and ask if this is something that you can participate in. Essentially, you get to participate in a civilian paid internship prior to even getting out of uniform. So it sounds like that was really helpful for you transitioning.
We do have a viewer question.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Thomas from Antioch asked, what is most important and what should I think of first? Well, let's go with Andres.
So what's more important about transitioning is finding out what you really want to do. So if you think about a career that you want to pursue, really talk to the VSOs and see if they can help you with that, because most likely they can.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
So doing your research definitely on what's out there, and maybe a Skill Bridge type of program, something that may have fallen in your I'm going to say it wrong, it's not an MOS in the Air Force?
We call it Air Force Specialty.
Air Force
AFSC.
Specialty, so seeing as your skills that you had while you're in the military can translate over to civilian life. That's kind of what, how about Raymond? I know we're talking to Raymond a lot, but I think you're in a unique position there, Raymond, where you've been out 5 years and you've gone through the early struggles and you're doing great now, working on your master's. So what should you think of first?
If you're still active duty and you're already thinking about transitioning and you're doing the research, like they said, try to figure out what you want to do. If you're lost in the sauce like I was, honestly, starting community college is not a bad idea because you could figure out if school's for you or if it's not, and have that to check off and make some friends while you're out there, which will help out a lot as well. But just doing the research, and just trying to figure out what to do next, because you don't want to get stuck doing nothing, and just like feeding into depression and isolation. You want to do something proactive with your life.
Yeah, that's so important. Raymond, you're kind of touching, so we're talking a lot about really structured, really specific programs, but you're touching a lot on the mental health aspect of things. So I wanted to ask, and anyone feel free to jump in, if you'd like to respond to one of your fellow panelists here. But I wanted to ask Brian, when it came to, again, the last time you were a civilian was when you were 18 years old. When it came to transitioning out, what would you say to someone regarding how important it is to take care of your mental health?
So obviously, it's super important because not just being in the service, because you need to be operational ready to perform the tasks at hand, but obviously you want to be available after you leave, right? You don't want to say, hey, thank you for the many years of service into whatever branch you currently served in, but then not be useful for your family or your friends. And the only thing I would just like to touch back on, like what Raymond said, but and I heard it a little bit, but you don't lose your identity just because you got out, right? So I'm still very good friends with a lot of my friends in the military, and they're still serving. And I also have folks that are on the outside who have been out for a number of years, and I'm saying reach back to both sides, right? You're the gap, you're that bridge, bring it back in together, because I was leaning on people who had been out for 3-4 years, and they would tell me their mistakes. And then so I knew to avoid that. Then I would turn around and tell the folks below me, hey man, this is what's gonna probably look out for this.
Yeah.
But mental health is super important. It's not that cliche, right? So to say that I've never had issues dealing with, amongst my career, I've had situations where my mental health, was pressed, and I needed to find those positive outlets in order to just be there for my folks,
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you, Brian. So Alyssa and Jason, you guys are both in a unique situation where, kind of like Elena and I, we're veterans, but we're also helping the veteran community. We are service providers. So we have veterans come in our office all day, you take phone calls. So have you learned from them more than you thought you would?
Absolutely. And I would like to just touch back on that last question that was called in. The biggest thing that I think is important is reach out. I mean, we all know the DoD TAPS, the TRS classes, they're the mandated course, but reaching out to these resources that, like, title of this program today, what I wish I knew. Transition is only hard if you do it by yourself. There's so many great organizations to include Work for Warriors, CalVet, MCCS, Fleet and Family Services. Everybody is here to help. And the biggest struggle and hurdle that I'm finding is that nobody knows about these programs. So we're fighting tooth and nail to bring these programs to the forefront so these veterans can know there's somebody out there, and it can tie in from mental health to education to employment to everything across the board. Reach out, because like I said, transition's only hard if you do it by yourself.
Yeah. We've got another viewer question that just came in. I want to ask Alyssa. This viewer, or anyone who wants to jump in as well, viewer question is from Daniel from Martinez. Daniel asks, how different is it? My only job has been in the Army. Sounds like someone joined out of high school as well here. Can my skills transfer to the civilian world? What would you tell that individual veteran, Alyssa?
So it was Daniel, right? Hey, Daniel. So definitely, so that structure that you once had, knowing when, where, what time you're supposed to be for how long, that's gone. That's not there anymore. So now it's completely up to you to navigate those milestones of your life. And so, just as echoing what everyone else is saying, trying to figure that out prior to separating the service. And there are resources that are there for you, you know, on the military installations to figure that out as well. Those career advisors, military family readiness, go to those places and talk to those people about those things.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. Anyone else want to jump in and give some advice to Daniel? He's talking about
Absolutely.
transitioning your, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Helena, you're teeing it up for me. This is just too easy. This is literally my bread and butter. So absolutely, how can your skills transfer to the civilian world? Primary, first and foremost, I mean, this is what Work for Warriors does in and out, day in and day out. Don't be married to your MOS, your AFSC, or your rating. You know, I'm field artillery. I've been in the infantry. I was a military police officer. You got to look down and find those soft skills. The military teaches us a lot of very valuable qualities that we possess as military veterans: punctuality, dedication to service, putting the mission, working well within a team. You know, I see people all the time I come across, they say, hey, Jason, you know, I was infantry. All I did was run and gun. I know how to, you know, shoot, move, communicate, you know, engage the enemy and destroy within a close distance, X, Y, Z, this, that, and the other. But you also got to take into account, what did you do inside that? Say you're, you know, E4, you're a corporal, you're a staff sergeant, you know, regardless of rank, you have a position where, you know, you're planning for a mission, you know, you're getting your GOTWA going, you know, that's operations, that's planning. You have to take into account, how much water do I need to bring for my team? How much ammunition? You know, you're sending up lace reports, spot reports, you're going through, and all these soft skills that include managing a team, a small team, whether you're a squad leader, team leader, that soft skill can transfer into the civilian world. Don't be married to your MOS, your AFSC, just because you say, oh, I'm infantry. There's so many skill sets that are hidden within that. And, you know, that's what we do at Work for Warriors. We dive down into your military, you know, skill set, and we help quantify that into the civilian terminology. So just because you think, oh, I was in the Army, these skills don't transfer, I guarantee you, I'd be willing to bet my BAH check that I can find some transferable skills that you have.
That you're absolutely right, Jason. I think Brian and Lena and Alyssa, I think we can all, we've all hired people. And when we see some of this came from the military, we know, I don't care what their MOS is or their AJT, something in the Air Force. Yeah, that doesn't matter to me. What I care that, you know, they did 4 years in the military. I understand what that means. I understand the discipline. I understand the structure. So that really is what's the most important to me, the soft skills. Because it's very unlikely, unless you had a 26-year career, that you're going to come out and use exactly the same skills that you used while you were in. I'm talking about MOS skills, job skills, but just the attitude you have to succeed, I think it sets us apart from non-veterans. So I hope everybody thinks about that when you think about, can my skills transfer? Just like Jason said, it may not be exactly these skills, but it's the skills that are going to help you succeed in the world over your actual job skills.
So I want to bring us back to the core of our show, which is what I wish I knew. And I'm going to put my co-host, Joshua, on the spot here. He could start us off, but then I want to hear from everyone. What is that one thing that you wish you knew before you transitioned? Especially now for us, we've been out for some time. So we've had a lot of time to reflect on this question.
I think I've been out a little longer than you. But what I wish I knew about the support system, about the benefits that were available to, a lot of us didn't find out, at least around my age, didn't find out these things even existed until 10, 15 years after we exited. The internet wasn't around as much then. But now we have a support system, and I really wish I would have kept in contact with someone that exited before me. But there was no Facebook at the time, so that wasn't as easy.
Took a little bit more effort to keep in touch with people.
Yeah, it was more effort. You had to use the phone.
Let's go over to Jessica. I know you've been out since February, so you're definitely still a learning curve. Same with you, Andres. But what's that one thing that you wish you would have known before you got out?
I wish I would have known that it isn't as scary as you think it's going to be. There's so much help, as we've talked about today. There's so many resources, and you just have to talk to someone and get help with that. But it's not as scary as you think it's going to be.
Yeah, I love that. Go ahead, Andre.
Something that I wish that I knew was probably the VRNE program, because I feel like that would have made me plan a little bit better about my transition.
Yeah. I know, certainly, I just want to interject before we go to Brian. When I got out, there was a lot of programs out there, and I felt like, and I used my GI Bill, just like you, and I always felt like there's some program out there that I'm missing out on. But now, fast forwarding, I've been out over 10 years, I look back on my experience and I can see in retrospect that everything happened just the way it was supposed to. So even though I didn't use this particular program, but I did use this one, it still worked out the way it was supposed to. So that's something that I would tell, especially our younger veterans, is that there's this big fear of missing out. If I'm not using the right program, maybe I should be using something else or doing something else. Tap into yourself, figure out what works for you, and then move forward. In the end, you know what your goals are, you know what works for you. Brian, what about you? What's one thing you wish you knew before you got out?
So I liked earlier when Raymond talked about that you don't do this transition on your own, right? It's not about yourself at this point. Coming out of the service, especially so folks would say, oh, if you're higher ranking, when you're retiring, you're used to a certain level of, support underneath you. And then that's not really there on the outside, in the sense when I was trying to apply for jobs, I'm the old guy now, trying to compete with the younger crowd, utilizing my soft skills that I think I still have and trying to show that I'm still a viable person. I put a statement on my retirement program. It said I was retired, not expired. And so I feel like because we feel like we can still contribute.
Yeah.
And then taking advantage of the Work for Warriors, as well as some of the other programs, I was able to come out with a really strong resume, translating all of that military terminology into an understandable format for the civilian workforce. Was successful in getting a job right away. Currently, I'm employed with the state of California. It's the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and so I'm their logistics chief.
Wow.
So I manage all the resources within an emergency incident up and down the state of California. So I'm hoping I'm doing a good job.
Yes. A successful transition in my eyes, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Can I just make a comment? Jessica, what you said, I think it should be broadcast nationwide. It's not as scary as we think it is. There's so many people out there that can help us, and I'm so glad that you said that. I wanted to make sure I was able to get that comment in before we have to wrap it up for the day.
Yeah.
I think we still have a little bit. Alyssa, can you tell us, what I always think about, there's a veteran, I'm getting out in 4 months, and you jump on the elevator with them. You have 4 flights to tell them, this is what you need to do, or please listen to me, this is my advice. What would you say?
Is this someone that's in the service still? Are they separating? Like, what's their situation again?
They're just getting out, right?
They're getting out in 4 months, but you only have a minute or less to tell them, what you think is the most important things for them to know before they get out. You're never going to see this person again.
I would definitely pull out my phone and have my QR code, my contact information on there, and say, you're separated from the service. Please reach out to the California Department of Veterans Affairs Transition Assistance Program. We could talk to you about all these different things when it comes to your state and federal benefits. You could pick one thing, we could talk about all of it, but let's start somewhere and go from there. Mm-hmm. One thing at a time.
I like that. Pick one thing and we can go from there. You don't got to come up with everything. If you want to have a list when you come to the office, feel free. But if you pick one thing, it often leads to other conversations, right?
I feel like that was the easy question for Alyssa and for Jason as well, because they're service providers and they do that. I want to turn it back. Andre, what do you think? Something real quick.
Something real quick? Oh no,
on the elevator.
This is a lot harder. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
I would say that you shouldn't overthink things.
Where do I need to go? Where should I go?
You should go online, search where you're going to go, and look at the nearest VSO in your hometown.
You got Ellen and I both smiling about that, so thank you so much.
Raymond and Jason, I don't think we heard from you. What is something that you wish you knew before you got out?
Go ahead, Raymond. Go ahead. All you.
If you're going the education route, I'm just plugging in real quick. Warrior Scholar Project, nonprofit that sends veterans and people transitioning out to like top 20 universities like Harvard, Columbia for an academic boot camp. So if I knew this because I did the research, but if you know you're going to go to school, plug into that because they pay for your flight and you get to network at Ivy League schools. And if you're there, you're more likely to get accepted into those schools as well.
What was it called again, Raymond?
Warrior Scholar Project.
Oh, interesting. So that's for if you're on the education path, you know that's where you want to go, an Ivy League. Very cool. Jason, what about you? What's one thing you wish you knew before you got out?
Absolutely. I'm going to use everybody's favorite terminology here to kind of piggyback on what Josh said. Go do your research. When I transitioned out of active duty Air Force, and even when I've transitioned, in the National Guard, we do a transition when we come back from deployments. I didn't know about this. And just to tie this whole thing up with a bow and what I wish I knew, go out, do the research, talk to people, find out what programs are available, because I guarantee you there's going to be something that you did not know existed. I'm still learning about stuff every day, and I've been in this position for 5 years now. I'm still learning, and I can't even imagine, just in comparison from when I transitioned back in 2010, 2011 out of active duty to current time and date, just the vast difference of the opportunities and the resource opportunities and the great organizations like Work for Warriors, like Calvet, numerous organizations that I wish I knew about them. And go out, talk to people, find that research, give it a Goog, go look and see what's there, because I guarantee you there's something specific for everyone's unique situation.
There's something out there for you. Well, I'm so glad we got to talk about all of these resources, and the greatest thing about the show is that we get to hear it from the veterans themselves. So thank you to everyone for joining us. That's going to end our panel conversation for the evening. I want to thank all of our guests for sharing their stories with us tonight. This show is airing live during Fleet Week in San Francisco. So we want to leave you with a few shots of the Blue Angels from a past Fleet Week shot by our own Veterans Voices correspondent, Stephen Burchick. Enjoy.
Are looking directly right or left, depending on their position, in order to stay in position. If you're a formation pilot, you know how difficult this is. This is your Kodak moment as the Blue Angels approach Alcatraz with the Delta breakup. We call the fan break.
We hope you have enjoyed our conversation tonight. We leave you with some resources if you found our conversation inspiring. If you are wondering what benefits there are available for those transitioning to civilian life, a county veteran service officer is a great place to start. Find one near you at nacvso.org. Work for Warriors helps service members, veterans, and their families with free job placement assistance. Reach them at workforwarriors.org. It is the mission of the California Transition Assistance Program to help those who serve navigate a world after service. To find them, do a browser search for Calvet CalTap. There will be a Veterans Day pop-up museum featuring space and robotic exhibits at the Veterans Memorial Building in Danville, California, from November 10th to 12th. Go to vmbsrv.org to find out more. Student Veteran Resource Center at Diablo Valley College will have its Veterans Day ceremony at Diablo Valley College Commons on November 9th at 8:30 a.m. For information, call 925-969-2525 or email Marina Valera at mvarela@dvc.edu. The Contra Costa Board of Supervisors will have a Veterans Day ceremony on November 7th in the board chambers in Martinez, California. Learn more at contracosta.gov. Veterans Voices is brought to you in part by contributions from the Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation, dedicated to helping veterans near you. American Legion Post 246, honoring the tradition of American Legion in Danville. If you'd like to help sponsor Veterans Voices, you can donate to Veterans Voices, care of Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation. Get in touch with them at diabloveterans.org. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week or check your cable provider's schedule for rebroadcast times. You can also rewatch this episode and many others on our YouTube channel, Veterans Voices of Contra Costa. So be sure to subscribe. Our next show will air Monday, November 13th at 7 p.m. We will be commemorating the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. You won't want to miss it. To all of our veterans and their families, thank you for serving. To all who have tuned in tonight, thanks for watching and have a great evening.